Hey cousins, welcome to Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas.
Welcome, cousins, to this episode of Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas. I'm your host, Cornell Wright, the People's Lobbyist, and I want to make a connection for you between history and present today. Now, cousins, I've often mentioned that there's always a connection of history, that you have to know your history to not be able to repeat it and to not make the same mistakes twice. As well as history has impact in regards to how things are projected into the future. The example I want to bring forward to today is about the Tuskegee Syphilis Experiment at Tuskegee, Alabama. Okay? What happened is that you go back to 1932. Now, 1932, in the United States, syphilis was a major concern. Syphilis, for those of you who don't know, is a sexually transmitted disease. It can have horrific effects on the body, it can kill you, and it can cause all sorts of negative things to happen to the person, and it can be transmitted to your offspring, and of course, to your spouse partner. So what happened is that in 1932, since it was a big deal and people were trying to figure it out, there was this organization called the Public Health Service, which was a part of the federal government. That was one of the earlier organizations and groups that kind of led to the development, when they put them all together, of what we now consider as the Center for Disease Control. You got me on this, partner, cousins? So as a result, they were federally mandated, they were structured, they were official, they were the good folks. So what happened is that they looked around and they found an area in Alabama, Tuskegee, in which they went and said, you know, we have a lot of syphilis around the country, but we can go and find, and they'd found 400 people who actually had syphilis in that area, and they found another 200 that didn't, 600 men. The reason why they choose men is because it's easier to understand and detect syphilis for men and to know when, in fact, you may, in fact, been infected, okay? So what they did is they told these 600 men that they were going to provide them with treatments for, back in the day, they referred to as bad blood. Now, bad blood was a combination of medical ailments, of which syphilis was just one of them. Why? Because medical treatments hadn't advanced to the point that we knew what all these things were, nor we know how to treat them. So for these men, they told them, all right, folks, look, what we're going to do is we're going to treat you for bad blood. That was not the objective. The objective was they were going to monitor and watch these men in order to see how syphilis ravaged their bodies. They would meet with them, they would take blood samples, they'd use the blood samples, and by the way, considering that throughout the period of time, they started to use the blood samples to be able to sell them to other organizations to actually do research on people who had syphilis. So, this is 1932, cousins. It continued until 1972. Think about that. From 1932 to 1972. This is considered the longest non-therapeutic experiment on human beings in the history of medicine and public health. Cousins, that's a bad idea. So what happened is that in 1947, to make it even worse, they found out that syphilis could be cured with penicillin by sometimes as little as one shot. Did they tell these men? No. They continued the experiment. So, cousins, it finally came to light in 1972 that these men had been under this for all these years. A number of them had died. Those who had died, they performed autopsies on them. Why? Just so they could see what impact syphilis had on their bodies. Cousin, that's a bad idea no matter how you look at it. So here's the other component of that, cousins. This is not the first time that black cousins had been used in medical experimentation. If you want to find out some other stories, look up gynecology, for instance. There have been we have a long history in this country of experimentation on the part of our black cousins because what? Black lives. So finally, in 1972, it was stopped. Cousins, in 1972, about 1975, 76, I heard about it. Did that have an impact on me? Yes. You may have not heard about it, but I heard about it in my community, and understanding that that people had had syphilis, they did not treat them, did not tell them that they had it, they didn't give them the treatment in 1947 to be able to alleviate some of this pain and suffering these people were going through. They allowed it to continue. So finally, in 1997, President Clinton actually issued a formal apology on the behalf of the government for what was then called the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis. Now, so cousins, what does this have to do with today? Well, today we're in the process of trying to find a vaccine for COVID-19. In order to find a vaccine, all of the pharmaceutical companies have to go through what they refer to as clinical trials. You've all heard about that. And most of the clinical trials run between, I've researched and seen, somewhere between 3,000 and 40,000 test subjects that they need to have. You need to have all sorts of people, including black cousins. You need to have older, younger, bigger, smaller, all different kinds of people in order to what? Determine one, whether or not the vaccine will work, and then what's the right way for how much do you need based upon your weight or your size or everybody, or how do you want to take it? Is it going to be oral? Do you need a shot? Some of the things we've heard recently is you need 2 shots, but they have to be maintained at very cold temperatures. That sort of information has to be verified. In order to have that, cousins, you have to have all the cousins who want to participate. So when you talk about black people and black cousins not wanting to participate, and you wonder why. They've been done wrong in the past. So as a result, there's a lack of trust. So in order to build back the trust, I would submit that the good ideas or the bad ideas going forward is you have to be very upfront and clear as to what all the medical trials are. You have to communicate exactly what it is, how long it's going to be, what the treatments are, and what you're going to do when something goes wrong. Because think about it, cousins, every time you hear about a new drug coming on the market or something advertised on TV, and they give you that whole list of things that might occur as a result of it, why they do that? Because that's happened to somebody in the course of the clinical trials. All right? So, cousins, recognize that there's a history that connects to the present, and we have to be mindful of that in all the things that we look at. Because sometimes people want to let you know that everything's a snapshot in time. No, sometimes there's been a long history that supports why things are the way they are. That wraps it up for today, cousins. Just recognizing the connection between the past and the present. Continue wearing your mask. By the way, hope you like my brand new sweatshirt with our logo on it. And please subscribe and let other cousins out there know that hopefully good things are happening here. You take care of yourselves because I care about you. I want you to care about me.
We are